Good morning. Welcome back to Morning at NTV. My name is Malaki Vilodera. Now today on the Solutions segment, we'll be focusing on the issue of insecurity in the country. And have you grabbed your copies yet? Now the big story in the Daily Monitor is police probes hit list of ministers, members of parliament. And so we have a new hit list that the police has actually put out there. And on this hit list, we have 16 names, including 2 individuals who appeared in the previous hit list. Do you remember the previous hit list? So yes, and that's what we'll be talking about. But this time round, we'll be having that conversation and asking ourselves, what's the place of religion in addressing the issue of insecurity in the country? And so in studios, I'm joined by Dr. Christine Tusime, who is a medical expert. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Mr. Simon Senyonga. He is a lawyer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mala.
Let's talk about this hit list. And it's not the first time we're seeing this, but this is just a fresh list, 16 names under there. What's your take on this from a religious point of view?
First of all, coming from, again, my relation as a Christian and as a born again, and also reading the byline that insecurity, divine intervention needed. First of all, there was a prophetic word that was given in relation to this sort of unfolding that's happening in the country. It must have been early this year and again last year when the prophet of God on January 2nd, I'm talking about Prophet Elvis Mbonye, talks about the banning of particular offices, and then he was rating it to the border 2010. And he talks about how particular things are going to be exposed, particular hidden agendas are going to be exposed in relation to security. Now realize that the nature of the story focuses specifically on the borders, brings and highlight the borders, which have been a vehicle of executing organized crime, especially by people within security circles, at least allegedly, or even within the media in the way it has reported. Now he goes ahead to tell us that it wasn't just about exposing it, but he goes ahead to cover the nation. So whereas what you're seeing may be sparks that may cause a lot of sensationalism in the public and all this, these are things that have been covered by the Lord, and the lives are not going to be lost. That one you can be very, very sure about it. So from a divine perspective, first of all, blessed is a nation whose Lord is God, that you're going to heed the voice of the Lord. First of all, before you take any extra steps in regards to preserving this, but before you put out a security hit list, are you going to heed the voice of God in regards to what he's doing? All right? And all these people actually need divine covering, which, whether or not they are Christians, it has been extended to them. And the Lord is covering them.
Dr. Christine, when he mentioned of that this 16 need divine covering, break it down for us.
The concept, just to go back to what you had asked earlier, the concept of a hit list is not new. If we take our minds to focus on the Muslim clerics, the string of Muslim clerics that were killed from about 2014 to about 2015, there was a specific prophecy that came out about 2 years earlier, talking about who the perpetrators were. Now, the issue here is about the police and the security agencies widening their scope of research, because there is a lot of research out there that talks about governments that use the concept of extrasensory perception to beef up their intelligence. It is not a new concept. It has been used for years by the Russians, by the Americans. Actually, if you look in history, it talks about even dating back to World War II. So we have things like the STAR project, the Stargate project that was in the US that was shut down. But later, after it was shut down, it came to public knowledge that these concepts actually work. So what did the security agencies do with the information? Because this information was out there. Are they actually doing the research they're supposed to do.
So what you're saying is that the security operators, actually police and all the security arms in government, need to also pay attention to prophecies.
They need to be open-minded.
Intelligence
They need to be open-minded, and they need not to stick to the mainstream, because this is the purpose as to why security has an intelligence arm. Because what does the intelligence arm do? It is upon them to collect all forms of intelligence, all forms of information, and then be able to deduce.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We had the president speak to us. Of course, this is during independence, and he gave us an assurance that every single citizen of the country is safe and secure, and that the government is on its toes to ensure that you and I are actually safe. Let's take a look at that.
Those people who wanted Uganda to remain stagnant, they are very worried. That's why they thought of this shallow way of trying to challenge us in the town using crime. This is because they cannot do it in the rural areas, because we are very strong there. However, I can assure you, as I said in my speech the other day, of all the problems I have handled in the last 58 years, this will turn out to be the easiest, because they are challenging me, challenging us where we can easily respond. And
so we know the president to be a very religious person. Every time he speaks, he always connotates the Bible. He will tell us, you know what, even in the Bible, this and this is said. So with him, and of course that time when he gave us a 10-pointer security, you know, kind of strategy on how government will deal with the issue of insecurity, he said that they will make sure that there are CCTV cameras in Kampala and even in the country. They will also deploy LDUs, and true to his word, we've been seeing the installation of the CCTV cameras, and also so far 6,000 local defense units, units have been deployed so far and actually recruited. Of course, the target is 24, and so it's still ongoing. Isn't that enough from the president? And of course, with the entire list that is still working on, executing?
I think, first of all, the question of recruitment of the LDUs, for me, it's not more about security as opposed to it being more of a political grounding. Because, the notion of deployment of LDUs or sort of special forces has always emerged even pre-2016. Remember the crime preventers who were put in place. How were they dissolved? Where are they right now? So you're having crime preventers who are still existent because they've never been officially disbanded. Then you have LDUs being put there. Is that enough? Question emphatically no. Look at the proportion of the numbers. 6,000 against a population of about 40 million people. Yet the population is still growing.
The number is still growing. The target is 24,000 LDUs.
Well, 24,000 LDUs in relation to 40,000 people, obviously even in relation to police and other security forces, can be debate of another day. Emphatically, it's not enough. Now, the first statement that you made, the president is a religious man who always refers to the Bible. And true to his word, many of his officials have always referred to divine aspects. Remember, during the time of the Entebbe murders and the Massacre murders, you had General or Major General Ivan Koreta on the floor of Parliament, referring to the use of, they're going to use witches to help them in, identifying these people. And again, the statements were repeated by General Kaihura when he was meeting then the crime preventers in Kampala at some time at the end of last year, where he says they're going to refer to these people. Now, you realize that, again, over time, security has realized that there is a deficiency in using of natural aspects. Now, my colleague introduced an aspect which is very important, which actually can not only help government, but also the common man, because this story goes towards the ordinary citizen. As a natural being, all right, you have particular abilities in which you're trained, particular senses. Now, that's what she talked about being the extrasensory perception. Now, these are senses which can be grown in you by the divine ability of the Lord, and you're able to sense actually what is going to happen to you in the future, or even in the past or in the moment what's going to happen to you. And all these are still prophetic abilities. Now that's why for us actually my very strong view is that for the government to have a permanent close down on issues of insecurity, there ought to be permanent reliance on divine abilities as opposed to anything naturally that you can organize.
Dr. Christine, and I'm sure you're privy to all this information, and people are very, when it comes to religion, it's a sensitive space, and people actually doubt some prophecies. So if government is to actually use prophecies as one of, the source of information with regards to just gathering intelligence information, how will they go about knowing that this is an authentic prophecy and this is just a prophecy of, people who are just call themselves prophets?
What you ask is a very interesting question. Because before one must rely on a prophetic word or on intel that is out there, there must be credible, some sort of credible background. Now, it is not once, it is not twice. And if you look in mainstream media, Google, Bing, whatever it is, governments have used ESP. ESP could take the form of telepathy, precognition, retrocognition, and they've actually gone as far as having these as core intels in intelligence agencies like the FBI, like CIA. Most of these guys, when they're looking for missing individuals, when they're looking for terrorists, they will actually rely on extrasensory perception. So how do we go about this? There is literature out there. I'm going to point out the book, Testing the Powers of the Age to Come.
Who has written it? Who's the author?
Elvis Mbonye. It goes in depth to sharing with the common man how they can position themselves and how they can actually inculcate these abilities to be able to help themselves. Because now what do you do if you have a burglar in your home? Or if it is in the community, how do you go about it? Because this intel is actually there. There are lots of books out there that actually describe how the security can inculcate these things into intel. But now, getting back to the focus at hand, the hit list, like I'd mentioned earlier, is not something new. It's happened before. We saw it in 2013. We saw the Muslim clerics dying. From 1 till about 12, and this entire thing was curbed by a prophecy. So it is not that we are talking about something that is abstract. There is credible evidence that this thing actually works. So about the security agencies and the master plan, yes, we agree there are some things the master plan can help with, but these are natural methods. We're talking about going above and beyond, being open-minded, going beyond the mainstream, because if you instill the CCTV cameras and have the LDUs and everyone else and it all fails, what next?
Mr. Simon.
Yes.
We saw the government come out clearly to say that, when it comes to security and insecurity and dealing with it, it also starts with you and I. Individuals. Then if we are to rely on prophecies, how will Ugandans go about knowing and differentiating between true and false prophecies?
First of all, I think we were having a conversation that in the book of the Hosea, people perish for lack of knowledge. Now, one of the ways God exposes knowledge is through the word of God. Now, prophecies are actually meant to magnify the word of God, and that's why they're spoken and put out there. How do you come to rely on a true or false prophet? First of all, she hinted on something, that there ought to be a background of credibility in the prophecies that have been given. Now, let's discuss the credibility of these prophecies and why actually the nation ought to rely on these prophecies. For example, I look at the hit list, and one of the people who is probably in danger is Mr. Erias Lukwago, the Lord Mayor of Kampala. Prior to his to his time when he was being disturbed at KCC, at the time when there was that commission and all that stuff, there was a prophecy given unto him that actually they were coming for him and he was going to be overthrown. It came to pass. That's number one.
Who gave that prophecy?
Prophet Elvis Mbonye. Number two, the hit list, the concept of the hit list in relation to what's playing out now. Again in 2013, Prophet Elvis Mbonye stands and says there's a hit list of Muslims, and then even he exposes the guy who was behind it, this Muslim fellow who was subsequently arrested from Tanzania. And true to the word of the Lord, all the people who were there actually were aimed at, and many of them were killed. Others obviously would have been more if they hadn't been preserved their lives, it would have happened. Over time in the nation, even before the First Lady, Honorable Janet Kataha, resigned, she was, before even she had the plans, she was told that actually you are going to resign, before she would expose it. Now, obviously, normally the way the knee-jerk reaction of the state, normally when you go into their secrets, they'll come back and try to, frustrate what you're doing. Now, again, in relation to the nature of the crime which is being used by borders, already there was a prophecy that was given in relation to what was going to be exposed by the guys who are behind this whole sort of regime. The final aspect, which even points to the credibility of Prophet Elvis Mbonye, why actually the nation ought to rely on his prophecies, is the prophecy which he called the Two Bulls prophecy. Now, that was something that was unfolding, antagonistic, between General Tumukunde and General Kaihura. Now, that was even before General Tumukunde was appointed as a minister. Now, he says that actually there's going to be a very serious fallout that actually was going to threaten the stay of this regime. And should it not be curbed by the time of March 23rd, this current regime of Museveni was falling off.
But of course there are other prophets in the city. So how do people go about differentiating true prophets and false? Now,
obviously, for me, I'm here. You present Prophet Elvis Mbonye.
But what does the Bible say about prophecy and identifying them that are true and them that are not? Now, them that are of God and them that are not of God.
Now, obviously, the Bible talks about there ought to be a track record of proven prophecies that have come to pass. Right? That's the way you're going to measure. Number two, the prophets are not just about doom and gloom, because the end purpose of the prophetic word is to speak the mind of Christ, which is the mind of comfort, the mind of love. It doesn't cause fear. And that's why whenever a prophetic word comes, there is always a certainty that, look here, yes, you may see these small things happening, but actually they are being curbed at a greater level. So you would have seen the hit list being much more longer and much more lives being threatened. But you see, because you have prophets of God who are genuine, and the one who I know is genuine, Prophet Elvis Mbonye, has gone ahead to cover all these people. And the danger is not actually as media perpetrates it. Because again, I will make a very sensitive statement that many of the guys in the media are actually pawns of the devil. So they perpetrate an agenda of fear, an agenda of uncertainty. And then they will close out, because look at the front page of Daily Monitor. Fear is being instilled. But see, the prophetic word will never be put at the forefront.
Let me tell you, with journalism and principles of journalism are very clear. You only say that which you have evidence to. And with journalism, of course with prophecy, you have to cover it up because, you can go an extra mile to get the clear word of God in terms of just, not putting fear or inflicting fear upon people. But with journalism, you cannot sugarcoat, you cannot wash.
But you see, Mala,
are you getting my point?
Yes.
So journalism principles are constant, and we have many Christians and even religious people, Hindus, Muslims, even them that don't believe in any being. But when it comes to professionalism, you stick by the rules of professionalism.
Okay. I get your point. So, I'll give a simple incident.
So with Peppers, we can't be coming to the news and telling you, what, so-and-so was killed, we have a hit list, but, and sugarcoat all that. We are mandated, and it is our role, and we own it to the public and the country at large, to tell it as it is. We have no strength or power to, sugarcoat anything.
I think, Mala, one of the principles of journalism still is creating balanced coverage. Now, balanced coverage, yes, balanced coverage. Again, you talk about the different sources of information.
Yes.
Now, for example, in this country, 1986, I think there was a prominent murder of a one Lutako Mekaira. Reliance was given to the Scotland Yard. All right, and the report was actually, the chaos that actually was caused with Lukwago trying to say, bring out the Scotland Yard report. That was a source of information. Now, the background of Scotland Yard report, actually, many of these people rely on these abilities, which are always very dismissed in the media, our current media. And wherever prophetic words come out, they are dismissed as baloney. But I can assure you, Mala, as day follows night, all these things come to pass one by one. And over time, the nation goes into a state of uncertainty. And over time, they will have to focus their mind on who God is. Now, like it or not, people can try to sound very intelligent as far as they want. One time, they will have to rely on actually where the nation is going. They must rely on the prophetic word, and they must believe in God. You can't keep on saying that, for God and my country. Then when God speaks, you say, no, God did not speak, rather rely on media. That's total pretense.
Dr. Christine, can God speak to individuals, common people?
Yes, God can speak to individuals. Just like I mentioned earlier, it came out in the US later. It's been published in a book called Phenomena by one of those ladies in the US. And she talked about precise, clear points of what the FBI, what the CIA was doing to beef up security of individuals. Now, there's been a lot of ransom kidnappings in the US. Now, they've been relying on these people. So, coming back to the situation at home, what can we do as individuals to beef up, security at home? Other than the security agencies taking on the master plan and everything, one thing that His Excellency, the President, didn't quite talk about is the fact of doing research, because research will save a lot of funds and a lot of heartache around this, because research has shown, and they even published articles that show the extent of ESP, of divine abilities that can be used within security.
So God can actually speak to
Yes,
individuals?
He can.
Common man,
Yes.
like me and you?
Yes.
Okay. And what you're saying, the core of today's interview, is that we also need to listen to that inner voice as individuals.
Yeah. Yes, that's very, very important.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming in studios. That has been it for Solutions segment. Thank you so much, Dr. Christine Katusime, medical expert, and Simon Senyonga, a lawyer.
Thank you,
Keep
Mala.
your views coming. What's your view on this, the place of religion in addressing the issue of insecurity in the country? Remember, the hashtag is Morning at NTV. You can also stream us live and drop in your comments. NTV Uganda, that's on Facebook and YouTube pages. Morning at NTV still continues. Up next is Take Note with Flavia Tumusime. Keep it here.